Hello, this is Charles Brewer, President of the Civil War Study Group here at Lake of the Woods, Virginia. Welcome to the recording of our program on June 28th, 2024. We have with us today an eminent presence, a neighbor actually of Saunders Field, Warren Middlebrook. Warren is right here. He's been a friend of Wilderness Battlefield Group and also a friend of this organization since their founding. He was a pilot, a private pilot, and took pictures of Lake of the Woods before it was Lake of the Woods. Again, it's an interesting collection. I have the pictures. And he's been, like I say, a definite friend. As a matter of fact, if you're familiar with our artifact display case, which used to be down the hall, now it's in the Woods Center, several of the artifacts that are in there came from his property. And the Culpeper Mine Road, I think it is, went through part of his property. So, and the battlefield, a part of the battlefield used to be his property. So there you go. Thank you for coming, Warren. Our speaker today is Bob Epp. He's Bob, are you vice president of the?
No, don't elevate me to that.
Oh, okay. Well, he's all right. He's on the board of the Friends. You're not even. Okay. Well, sorry about that. I got my bio information incorrect. But anyway, he's been a very active member in the Friends of the Wilderness Battlefield, as well as historical research. He gave a talk to us about, I want to say, a year and a half or 2 years ago about the hospital room that he and his fellow researchers set up at Ellwood Manor. And today he's going to talk to us, as you can see, about Parker, Virginia. Bob was born in January of 1942, so he's a little bit older than I am, at Eau Claire, Wisconsin. He graduated high school in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin, and college at the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point. Immediately upon graduation, Bob married Diane Beth Christofferson at Nehaw, Wisconsin. All of these are challenging place names. Parker Store is easier. They arrived in Northern Virginia soon thereafter, where Bob was employed in the Department of Defense for 40 years and contracted back in for another 4 years. So he probably knows a little bit of our secrets here. But anyway, Diane and Bob moved to the wilderness of Virginia in 2009, and that's east of Route 20 off of Route 3. To a home they had built along the Wilderness Run Lake. That fall, Bob was guided toward an introduction to the Friends of the Wilderness Battlefield. He trained to interpret at Ellwood the following spring, and has remained active with the organization ever since. As a trained geographer, he has studied and written on transportation and logistics issues. The mystery of the Parker Store Road has been a wonderment to Bob since his first introduction to it, and now he has scratched his itch through a multi-year research effort. So Bob is here today to share his Parker family findings with us. So Bob.
Well, good morning, everybody. Good morning. It's a pleasure and honor to speak to a group like this. It's not my common, ordinary thing that I do. I usually talk to visitors to Ellwood. It's a very loose, fluid situation. I'm trying not to be regimented today. I have 40 slides. I'm regimented. I'm sorry. I'm German too. So, as mentioned, I came on board with the Friends in 2010. One of the first things I heard about was the Parker Store Road. And I looked out the front window at Ellwood and I said, there's no road out there. It wasn't much of a road. It was indeed a cart path. And I picked up on that, and I said to myself, someday I'm going to learn more about it. The last 3 to 4 years of my time has been spent, free time has been spent looking for information on Parker. So I'm going to talk about 3 different things here. I'll talk about the family itself, the Parker family. I'll talk a little bit about the military actions that took place there in 1863 and 64. And then I'll get into some other miscellaneous information at the end. Well, let's begin with this map. I borrowed this from dear old Ellwood. Most of you have heard about dear old Ellwood in one way or another. This is a map that's included in there. It's done by Howell, I believe. The red line sort of approximates the original trace of the Parker Store Road. It's very loose. Once I started working on this, I was reminded that the Civil War Study Group had done a recon and project on the Parker Store Road several years before I got here. And I had privilege to have Bob Johnson, I think Craig Raines. Craig is not here? Craig's over there? There he is. Craig and a couple others took me out and showed me various parts of the Parker Store Road that they had located when they conducted their project. So notice that it starts up on the upper right side. See if I can, up in there. That's at the junction with the old Germanna Plank Road. It travels down through the old Ellwood properties, the Jones Field, comes on down past the Tuning Heights. These are all very historic places. And it terminates down on the Orange Plank Road down here, where there's virtually nothing. The dirt, sandy road trail driveway in there is still there. That's the terminus, as I understand it. And just did not connect. I just got bothered by it all. So I set out to learn more about it. Here is a picture that I took several years ago. This is the trace below Ellwood. You notice that I tried to get my very expensive modeling wife to go up there and take a picture with me, but she had other things to do. So I pulled this out of my archive, and notice it's not very wide, it's not much, it doesn't look like much of a road, but that is a trace. If you take the walking trail from the north corner of Ellwood grounds today and walk out to the old site up at the Wilderness Tavern site, you'll walk right past this. And if it isn't pointed out to you, you probably would miss it altogether. So, again, it wasn't much of a road. One of the first things I did, because I was already enamored with the national park by that time, had been trained for a couple of years, I went to the park, a research center downtown at Chatham. And while I was there, I discovered this piece of paper. I think the author is a member of the Civil War Study Group. I don't think he's here today. That would be Joe Rokas. It was found in the park folders accompanying a letter he wrote. He did some research back about 10 years ago. And his question he tried to answer was, who was at Parker Store in 1860? This is the census extract for 1850. And it's hard to read, I'm sorry, but Robert Parker, a merchant, Eliza Jane Parker, Jay is not there, and 2 daughters, Sarah and Ellen. Sam is a hostler. Everybody knows what a hostler is, right? Raise your hand. Alan knows. Alan Zirkle, what is a hostler?
Sort of like a teamster?
Teamster. He is the person that was at this facility to take care of the animals that visit. I'm adding a little interpretation there, but a hostler is the guy who takes care of animals.
And that's an O, not a U.
It is an O. Yeah. So, and then the last one there is William. He is a clerk, according to that annotation. He is a son of a local family member. I think he's about 15 years old. Yeah, 15. So there was a clerking activity there. There was an animal care activity there, based on this one record. Started me on my way. There's a lot of facts floating out there. These are mostly uncorroborated. I've stumbled across them as I worked my way through. Of significance to me was this one. There are several Robert Parkers listed in New York. On that census extract, it was shown that he was born in New York. So, which one of those New York in 1820 Robert Parkers could possibly be the Robert Parker out here? Yet to be determined. I'm sorry, I don't have that answer. I wish I did. There was also a rumor floating that Robert Parker married Eliza Jane Parker, said to be cousins. Still uncorroborated, but entirely possible. Entirely possible. Not proven, I don't have the answer yet. A lot of genealogical work would have to be done to do that, and I just couldn't do that and incorporate it in this research. These records all have identification numbers below each of them. These are records I found at the Heritage Center downtown. The Heritage Center has a unique identifying feature, a record-keeping system. So when you see a record, their cataloging of it goes by this strange number. They can't explain it to me, or I can't understand it maybe more accurately. That's their system down there. It's something to behold if you go. Insolvents, delinquent land purchases. In history, we know that the people of the 1800s, a lot of them became insolvent, oftentimes couldn't pay their taxes, got put on the list. These lists are in partial holding at the Heritage Center. The Heritage Center is an amazing place, I tell you. It has records that have been deposited there by family members and other organizations for years and years now. It is a mini library of Virginia, but it's focused only on Spotsylvania County, Stafford County, King George County, Caroline County. Caroline County Courthouse has dumped many of their old courthouse records into the Heritage Center. So if you're doing research in Caroline County, they've got most of it down there. Very, very valuable archive and for that purpose only. Notice the numbers of Roberts. You got a Robert here, and our Robert here. Probably all the same person. Where he ties into the overall Parker scenario, these are all Parkers. Just has to come take more genealogical work. 1845 discovered. Now I'm showing you these in chronological order, sort of. I'll vary a couple places, but I'm showing you as they happened on the calendar. 1845 at the Circuit Court downtown Fredericksburg, this deed was filed. A Robert Parker, I don't know if it's my Robert Parker yet at this point, buys I wrote lot here, that's really a batch of household furnishings from a James Vessels. James Vessels appears to be a free man of color. He appears to have been a butcher by trade, and there's a senior, elderly Elizabeth who dies just a few months before this transaction takes place. I found that in a newspaper article. So Robert disappears, or James disappears. I find no other record about James Vessels after that particular deed. So I think the man moved north probably and set up business up north. About the same time, this newspaper clipping from the 1845 time frame at Alexandria, Virginia, there is a unclaimed letter for a Robert Parker. Did my Robert Parker leave New York, come south via Alexandria, have mail sent to him there that he didn't stay long enough to collect, and instead moved on down this direction? It's just an approximation, I'm guessing, but it could be. Let's go back to the 1850 census again. If you've done census record work, you'll know that people have gone through and transcribed them into a much more readable format. Sometimes they make mistakes. New York, New York, New York, New York, New York. That's a big mistake. Robert was born in New York. We don't know where the others were born. Certainly his wife, Eliza Jane Parker, was not born in New York. Where he met her or where they came together, I still don't know. Their 2 daughters were born here. And I'll show you a record in a minute that substantiates that. Sam and William are still there as employees at the store, as they were in the extract. But this shows that in doing genealogical work, you just got to be careful. And as you progress through, sometimes the information follows you up. Okay, 1851, newspaper clipping, Fredericksburg newspaper. Fredericksburg News was one of 2 newspapers in Fredericksburg at that time. This clipping says that a Mr. Parker, doesn't say Robert, it says Mr., went to the trouble to buy 2 expensive billiard tables and to put in his billiard salon in downtown Fredericksburg in the Colonnade building. Everybody knows where the Colonnade building is? No, it's not there. The Colonnade building was located across the street from the old courthouse on, is that Princess Anne Street? Right? And by 1857, the building is an educational facility, and it has burned down by the time the war starts in 1861. Gone. So there's no history to be gained there unless it's in one of the archives. Again, the Fredericksburg News. So a Mr. Parker, doesn't say Robert. He's branched out or what? I don't know at this point. Putting these together in the sequence that I have them. All right. Florence Barnick, if you don't know her, Florence has been associated with the cemetery in Fredericksburg for years. Here's a record she compiled, a find a grave record. Everybody knows what a find a grave record is? Your people and their burial site have been recorded, and a find a grave record has been created for them. Florence in her, now this is 2002, puts together all the information she has on this Parker family. And she identifies the fact that a Robert B. Parker was born in February of 51 and dies in July 51. I'm developing a pattern here. The children of this couple do not live long. There's something going on medically. Interesting, it says in section 6, lot 63, stone number 31. I had no idea the stones were numbered in a cemetery. But here's a clear record of it. Again, Robert the parent, Eliza Jane the parent. Mary, born 45, died 46. Sarah, born 47, dies 1850. Right after that 1850 census enumeration took place, the second daughter has died. The third daughter has been born already in 49. So, genealogically speaking, this was a real hit. This is gold in my research. Thanks to Florence. Florence couldn't be here this morning. She had a family matter come up. I invited her. She's been a real credit. She now is the board director for the Heritage Center. So she's contributing a lot of local history. She has Native American blood, by the way. So she's all over the map, all over the map. I wish she could have been here. Okay, looking at the cemetery itself, this is a plan for the cemetery. Most of my slides say city cemetery. She'll slap my mouth. It is the Fredericksburg Cemetery. Do not call it the city cemetery. Didn't have time to make my corrections here. So we were sent to section 6, right here. We were sent to plot number 63, right there. Originally, this was the original entrance to the cemetery. The hill in front of that was cut down when the Orange Plank Road was constructed. So the hearses used to come in and go through here into the cemetery, no longer could make this sharp turn in there. So they had to come up with another plan. What happened was they knocked the north back wall down of the cemetery. So today, if you walk in from Amelia Street here, you'll have the cemetery on your left, you'll have the Confederate cemetery and more burials on the right. But you walk into both cemeteries simultaneously. So I've done that. I've been there several times. Markers there. There are 3 stones. stones. They were apparently numbered at one time, no longer so, but interesting that they numbered their stones that way. They're probably mostly because they did not have the funds to buy full markers. So that's on the cemetery website. There is the marker on the perimeter of the plot itself. There's this marker. This really clarifies everything for you. I mean, Robert Parker, 12 of family and friends, relatives, and 1 stranger. I mean, how do you make anything out of this? I got it though. I mean, it's there. I walked there, I took the picture. So it's there. If you walk to plot 63 and look around the border on the southeast side of the plot, this marker is there. And it tells you everything. Well, there's more to that story. I'll get to it later. 1853, again another local newspaper, the Weekly Advertiser, the second newspaper in Fredericksburg. Notice the undersigned is determined to cease his business. He wants all debtors to come and pay up their accounts. What business? What business is he closing? He's got, to my knowledge, something going on at Parker with a hostler and a clerk. So there's a business out there. There's something, it sounds like, smells like, there's something going on in town. True, it turns out to be true. So whether he collected his debts or not, I have no idea. Here is an 1854 license. The license to operate an ordinary. Everybody knows what an ordinary is, right? Shaking your head, no. All right, we'll find out in a minute. At the halfway house, halfway what? Halfway between Fredericksburg and Orange Courthouse. Parker store. Okay, making a leap of faith to some extent here. All right, signed by, look down there, Melzi Chancellor. Who's Melzi Chancellor? Come on, historians. This is the quiz session. Come on. You own their Chancellorsville. Yeah. So Melzi was a big cheese in the northern part of Spotsylvania County, and he signed off on this particular ordinary license in 1854. Here is a better license for the same thing. This tells you what an ordinary really is. Down here it says you feed the visitors that come and their animals, and you provide them with food and the things that animals need. Silage, provender, the things that the animals, the horses especially, would need if a visitor stopped at your ordinary. This one's signed by Robert Parker and George H.C. Rowe, whatever you want to say. I've talked to Pat Sullivan, who is a Rowe from out here on Route 20, down below Mine Run. He has done extensive research on his Rowe ranch down there. And Bob he tells me emphatically this is not in his family. This Rowe is not in his family. So who is this H.C. Rowe? George H.C. I found that Florence Barnick is a descendant. Coincidentally, the word, how things come around. Florence told me that indeed one of her cousins was more knowledgeable, so I contacted the cousin, and she said, I don't know. Once again, another roadblock. Genealogy is fun. Roadblocks all the time. But he apparently was a entrepreneur of his type. He was part minister, part lawyer, part developer, financier. Why he's messed up with Robert Parker out here at the Parker, Virginia site, don't know. And his descendant couldn't tell me. So that's where that's at right now. May still happen. You don't know. New records may be developed that'll clarify it. 1855 also, from the Richmond Daily Dispatch, Virginia Chronicle newspaper. The Postmaster General of Virginia issues contracts. The contract one he issues is number 4807, Fredericksburg by Wilderness via Wilderness Reed to Orange Courthouse for Robert Parker for $800. That's his contract year. Think about $800 in 1855. Okay? There's another route right after it down here in the description, running from Chancellorsville to Quebec, worth $600. So he's getting in $1,400 a year from the Postmaster General of Virginia to operate a two postal routes, one from Fredericksburg to Orange Courthouse, and one from Chancellorsville to Culpeper. Some money there, keeps him in business, I'm sure, but it starts to fit. The horses had to be cared for, hence a hustler. Okay, not just the travelers, but these horses that drew the mail wagons to and fro from Fredericksburg to Orange Courthouse and from Chancellor to Culpeper. About the same time, 56 next year, this clipping is found. There are several clippings in there along this time frame that I didn't include. On Saturday of 1856, Robert Parker announces that he's selling all kinds of goods at his store on Commerce Street. Commerce Street. Commerce Street today is out in the development west of I-95. This Commerce Street was down in Fredericksburg someplace. Down to the Virginiana room I go, pull out old maps. Lo and behold, Commerce Street is today William Street. Now it says one of these says it's on upper Commerce Street. And again, that street running from down by Sophia all the way up the hill to the top, that's upper. Geographer, huh? You gotta think about these things. Upper Commerce Street is where this ties together, that he's selling merchandise from a marketing point up there on top of the hill on at that time Commerce Street. Why is he selling? Starts to get a little suspicious. Played around with it for a while, and along the way came up with some more information. A year later, Robert dies at Mattapanai, also in the apartment. So this man was born in 1820. He dies in 1857, just short of his 37th birthday, of some sort of illness, late of Fredericksburg. Ties the two together, finally cements the city of Fredericksburg with Parker for me. Now I can really believe that he was in two places. He's selling merchandise downtown. Some of the clippings I didn't print to put up here, he was selling plows, P-L-O-U-G-H, old English spelling. He had lost a gold pen. He advertises for information on his missing gold pen. I didn't include all these things, but he's in the newspaper a lot for a man who lives out at Parker. But he no longer is at 57. He dies in his 36th year, just short of 37. He leaves a devoted wife and a child. The child is the one born in 1849, Ella, known as Ella. She's Ellen officially. And Ellen lives till 1929. She's the only one that had a long life in this family. She dies an old maid. Again, you could read into that all kinds of things. Perhaps was always sickly, as was the rest of the family. Three other siblings had already died by the age of 3. So Ellen to live till 1929 is quite remarkable, but may have not been the best. May not have the greatest life, let's say. Can't prove it. All right. When the estate in those days was had to be settled, Robert, of course, had to turn his property over to somebody. So it's all inventory, and in the inventory are 3 mail coaches, substantiating the mail service that he operated. A lot of other stuff is there. The estate is held by auction. October of '57, after advertising in 2 newspapers, which is the thing you had to do in those days, was held at the Planter's House. Everybody knows what the Planter's House is. Huh? Yeah? You don't know where the Planter's House? You know where the slave stone was?
Yes.
That's the corner. That building is the old Planter's House. It was then a hotel, and the auction was held out in front at the Planter's House on that corner. Eliza was the highest bidder. Where'd she get her money? She didn't use available credit. She's getting $1,400 a year to run mailroads, or more by then. So she apparently used, I'm guessing not, but that's my considered judgment on this, that she paid in the cash that she got from the state of Virginia, the Postmaster General. It included in the description, land on the western end of Commerce. Western is the top of the hill, upper Commerce Street. All beginning to really fit together. This deed was recorded in January '58 after the auctions in '57. This is the Fredericksburg Circuit Courthouse record. There's probably more records down there that I haven't been able to locate yet. More bad news. 3 years later, Mrs. S.J., they printed, it's really Eliza Jane Parker, widow of the late Robert Parker, leaving a daughter, 11 years old. Ellen was born in '49, this is '60. Friends and relatives to mourn her loss. Devout Episcopal Church member, and said, on her deathbed, how sweet it is to die in Jesus. You gotta love these obituary notices. There's so much good stuff in there. But, how sweet it is to die in Jesus. Okay, so her, again, now the estate has to be identified and is put up for auction. Now, we're talking now about the war years. We've had 1861 and 1862 in Fredericksburg, which were disastrous years. J. H. Bradley pays $575. Eliza paid $850 in '58. Now in '63, 5 years later, he's paying $575. There's no inflation there to speak of. And in the deed it says located opposite the city cemetery. How much more, concrete can it be? The location of this piece of property in town was right across the street from the city cemetery. It's right there in the deed. Answers most of my questions that I had yet remaining at that point. Half acre. You take you picture the front of the cemetery on Plank Road, William Street, going down the hill there. There'd be the property off to your left on the south side. And if you picture a half acre in there, there's a sizable piece of property out there. There are 2 or 3 old houses there that go back, I'm sure, a considerable distance. Okay, just for edification here, Eliza dies in 1860. She writes in her will, the wife of Robert, she writes in her will that she wants her estate to be divided among her 3 sisters, Elizabeth Parker, Mary Parker, and Ann Parker. 2 older and 1 younger. There is some information out there about those 3. She also specifies in the will that her daughter will be taken care of by Elizabeth, the Baggett family. The Baggett family was in a farm situation out where the high school alongside Harrison Road today, they were out in that area. So that's the Baggetts. Son of Samuel gets involved in the construction industry and builds buildings and things like that. Anne has at least 2 husbands. I believe William may have been the second. There are children named Lewis in the records, 1860, but she marries Thomas Franey in 1865, so it's possible that she lost William during the war. Didn't prove that either way yet. So that's the 3 girls. Mary marries Henry Hayden. Henry Hayden was the postmaster in Orange Courthouse. So was Mary driving the mail coaches between Fredericksburg and Orange Courthouse? How would she meet Henry out in Orange Courthouse? Supposition again. no proof of it. It's in her will. And now circling back to the marker on the Parker plot in the cemetery in town, the marker was in her will. She specifies that that marker will be placed on her husband Robert's gravesite. Didn't happen until the one that I showed you was done, and that was 1836, according to the cemetery records. 7 years after Ellen dies. So 1836, again.
1936.
1936, excuse me, 1936, the marker is placed, finally specified by Eliza Jane's will of 1861. 60. She wrote it before she died in 60. Getting a complete story, so to speak. Here's the William Lewis family of 1860. William, here's Anne, the youngest daughter, youngest sister. She's got Lewis children. Here's a very mysterious person, 77 years old. I'm surmising that that is the father of the 4 girls. I don't have proof of that yet. Something that has to be solved. John is a cousin of Robert Parker or Eliza Jane Parker, if they end up being relatives related before marriage. Large age discrepancy, 65 and 25. Winslow is the 77-year-old, born in probably out in Rappahannock County. There's some information on that. And they were a neighbor on the census record, if you go above or below this part of the record, of Millsy Chancellor. So I know they lived out probably along Brock Road or in that area, just south of today's Route 3. Piecing all these things together, it does come together. Here's all the sources I use up to this point. There are a few more. I'll be happy to give you references to these should you want to do local research. Like I say, there might be 1 or 2 others that I've done. I'll take time for questions, but I don't know how you feel about that. Are there any burning questions?
I have 2 questions. Back when Robert Parker dies, why does Eliza have to buy? Why did she not just
That was
inherit?
English law yet at that time.
So
English law.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
she did not directly inherit.
Okay.
So it had to go through the state and
And that's why when
and
she
she
died,
purchased
her daughter didn't
No.
inherit. And then you said the sister, the one, it said she was born in 1822, but it also said she died in 1822.
that should be,
Yeah, on your slide.
Yeah, check your
I'll have
slide.
to check that.
Yeah.
No, she was born in 22, died in, Elijah Jane was born
So this,
24.
this was the
the older one,
the one married to Hilden?
Hayden.
Hayden.
Hayden,
One
yeah,
married to
Mary.
Hayden. Yeah.
Mary,
Yeah.
24,
So
yeah.
just check your
There was
slide.
22, 24, and 32, I think, for the 3 sisters, younger.
Yeah, so
The
but
other
on
two.
the slide, it says
Yeah.
she was born in 22
Yeah.
and died in 22.
Yeah. So that's a typo. I'll have to
That's okay.
correct that. Clyde?
The English law thing, she had to buy, she didn't inherit it.
No.
But she was allowed, as a woman in those days, she had merit, she knew what she was doing apparently.
She bought the property. She
But-
had a lawyer.
But to go through a state or government official, you had to have merit, you had to know what you were
Clyde, I
doing.
challenge you to research that for us.
Give us a story. But, I mean, she had merit, right?
Please.
But
Any
you
other
could
questions?
just buy a post-it. That sounds
Another
political.
question.
Can you tell us about the Civil War?
I'm coming to that next.
Okay.
Yep. I'm not done. I'm taking the time to
Just a
break here.
pause.
Go sit down, Charles. Okay, what happened in 63, November?
Hmm.
General Meade decides he needs to be a star. So he plans a mine run attack. He sends 2 corps across up here at the ford. He sends one across here, and he sends here, and 2 across here. 5 corps are designed to attack General Lee's right flank along the south side of the Rapidan. Well, as things happen, it didn't go well. It was a horrendous rainstorm that day, right? Mike, big rains. The troops talked about bringing their wagons through mud up to their hubcaps. So it was terrible weather and it delays everything. The plan to come together by Robinson's Tavern never happens, right? Lee gets wind of all this and he redesigns his defenses to the south along Mine Run, and the battle doesn't take place. But something happened in that the skirmishes in the early part of that along Plank Road, Orange Plank Road, left a lot of the troops short on ammunition. The ammunition supply was hung up in some of the transport wagons trying to get south across the fords to join their units. It was fairly calm on the 27th. There were the 2nd Brigade was located along the Orange Plank Road, and again, short on ammunition. It was so short that they were talking about 1 round of ammunition per cavalry unit people out there. And the 2 main units, which are at Parker Store, were the 3rd Pennsylvania Cavalry and the 1st Massachusetts Cavalry. So during this lull, they sort of eased out of their battle mode. The 3rd was the premier of the 2 regiments there. The 1st totally unsaddled and camped literally for 2 days without really doing much militarily. The 3rd had patrols out along Orange Plank Road back to Good Hope Church. Good Hope Church is where the brigade command post was, and they were keeping the Confederates off the Orange Plank Road to the south of them. The morning of the 29th, they were resupplied at Parker. Really, this is a thumbnail sketch, really. They were resupplied with forage for the animals. The mail came through. Big news, of course, the units, guys out there in the units. But as the wagons were coming south on the Orange Plank Road, Judge Stewart surprised them. He picked up some of Rosser's troops and he charged out along the Catharpin Road, turned north on what was then a Parker Road, known as a Parker Road, and came up to Parker Store from the south. And there was the Pennsylvania cavalry guys were so surprised. A lot of them were out on patrol. They had taken the ammunition with them, so the ones at the store were no longer capable of resisting. So most of those 2 regiments fled into the woods to the north of the store. Those that were left behind were those that couldn't get away, too injured to transport themselves, and they were killed by the Confederates that got there. Stewart got word then at that point that there were more infantry coming along the Plank Road, and he packed up and headed south. This is another description of the 2 regiments. After the fight, the previous day, were out of ammunition. During the morning of the 29th, wagons had stopped, the resupply wagons had stopped at the store, and that's when Stewart surprised them. Stewart was able to get 1 piece of artillery across a bridge on one of the tributaries to the Mattaponi River. I think it's the Nye. I believe the northernmost tributary is the Nye, but I'm not positive. You know, Mike? I think it's in the Nye. Yeah. It runs through, it's about Sweeney Courthouse area. This is a gun of that type. Before they left the area, they fired 3 rounds into the store. Okay, what are 3? It was probably 3-inch guns, probably, and they might have done some damage to the house. We don't know. It wasn't fully described. Okay, that was November '63. May '64 comes, and Wilson's cavalry are out there at the Parker Store area. Warren's Corps, of course, was ordered to move from Ellwood to the Parker Store on the Parker Store Road, cart path. Brigade staff arrived out there early on the 5th. Hill's Corps was pushed back initially to Tuning Heights. Longstreet's Corps came the next day and reinforced everything out there. And when injured, Longstreet, near the front along the Orange Plank Road, was brought back to the Parker Store. The hospital that the 1st Corps left at Parker Store, actually at Pulliams Field as well. They were split up, probably 2 or 3 division hospitals out there. They were split up along that area. Longstreet's dead were buried all over that area, including at Tapfield and the Pulliams Fields and the store area. When the exhuming of the Confederate soldiers out in this part of the battlefield was done after the war was over, they were taken off of the three main places: the Tapfield, the Pulliams farm field and the mill, and near the store itself. Those are in the records of those that were exhumed and taken into the Confederate cemetery in town. That next spring, Hadley is on a corps assignment. He's elevated from a regimental to brigade, I believe it was. And he describes the store as he came up the Plank Road heading southwest to meet Hill's troops. The only description I have found so far, they're 0.4 miles west of the intersection of Germanna Road. Germanna Road terminated in those days at the firehouse, where the firehouse is on Orange Plank Road. It came all the way through to 621, Route 621 today. The old wooden house called Parker Store, built many years before, in clearing of 3 to 4 acres. If you had some pasturage for animals, 3 to 4 acres might be enough. Hadley was, as I say, signed up, he had been raised, elevated in assignment by this time. So, another famous historian challenged me. Most of you know him. John Hennessy. As I started this project, I mentioned it to John one day, and John says, "Where was the store? Where exactly?" His words were, "Where exactly was the store?" So this is the third part of my talk here. This is the original map I showed you. No, this is the Gilmore map. On the Gilmore map, it shows the intersection right there with a building on each side of the road. That is the most common perception of what was there. There was the house and store on one side of the road, and the hostler and the building supporting the animal husbandry was on the other side of the road. That's common, hard to prove. Nearby was William Cheney's place, and up here was Mrs. Pulliam's place. So when the first corps would have had Tapfield up here, they would have been near Mrs. Pulliam's place, and they would have been near the Parker, where their hospital areas were. One map, one interpretation. Maps are what they are. They were compiled by a bunch of people who went out and collected information, brought them into a cartographer. The cartographer assembled it together, and what he thought people had told him, they are what they were. Not always totally accurate. Here is a map from the mine run operation. Parker is out here. This isn't very definitive. I blew it up. It still doesn't help any, so I apologize for that. It puts it out in the right area, is about all it does. It's done much later. The maps done 40 years after the event become less and less precise as you use them and compile them. Here's that original map I showed you with the Parker store, the gray line actually along here coming down. It joins the Plank Road, but not at the store. The store is to the west of it. That fits, geographically speaking. Today, if you find that the terminus of that trail right there, it's still there. It's a driveway, dirt road. It's still, what, a quarter mile east of you, Wayne? Along 621, about a quarter mile? It's beyond your pond, right?
I think it's before the pond.
Okay, it's in the
Between
area.
the pond and your store.
Okay.
Everybody got a different opinion of that too.
There are different opinions, yes. Yes, just like people with noses. So that's what the whole map showed. That's the first one I showed you in my talk. From the position at Parker Store, along the northeast with the cleared ground, that's where the animal husbandry was. A good-sized road ran eastward. He says eastward. The Orange Plank Road does not run true north and south. It's northeast to southwest. So you have to, again, being a geographer, you have to think about where they could be mistaking and in this case, a plank road towards Carthagen. That's the one that Stuart came up. He actually dismounted his troops and they fought, his cavalry people dismounted and fought on foot during that attack of the store. The road ran southwestly, I'll go with that. About a quarter mile to the west of the store was another road. If you go out there today, Windy Acres crosses over 621, goes down to the rail bed, hangs a little bit of a right, goes back to the farm that's back there. It advertises on the web all the time. Those two road intersections with today's Orange Plank Road kind of fit what this says. So I can live with that. In the 1930s, Robert Happel, the park historian, was reconnoitering along the Orange Plank Road. And he left these in the park folder, found them when I was there that first trip. And he lays out the map to be this way. The 621 going through this way, and that's right through to the globe. The modern farmhouse here, that's Wayne Miller's place. And across the street, he has his other buildings out here, and he puts Parker Store right there in the southwest intersection of the old Parker Road. Well, the old Parker Road isn't there per se. He also took a picture while he was there. Now, standing here across the road from Wayne's house, there's a gravel road here, a gravel path. I contend that is the old Parker Road that he was describing on that map. That these are the more modern buildings down at Windy Acres and 621 down there of the 1930 time frame. The big barn on the right over here is gone, and now there's a modern house across the street from it on Windy Acres. Some of the old buildings are still there. The church is still there, and the old buildings that were along the railroad, the narrow gauge railroad that ran through there, some of them are still there, reconstituted, rebuilt, refurbished, stuff like that. Ralph Happel puts it right here. He puts the store right there, and I can't argue with him. Others may choose to do so. That's my story. So back to Joe Rose. Joe was writing that letter, doing some research on the 1860 census. The Hirsch family had immigrated from Baden, circa 1850. They came in through Baltimore. They moved eventually to Unionville along the Route 20, today's Route 20. And when they were there, their oldest boys, Isaac and Simon, were later in 1860 at Danielsville. Family were friends with the Eisman family. Isaac enlisted in the 30th Virginia, but he kind of absconded north. He was kind of a spy for the Union troops. Never suffered from it, to my knowledge. And later, the two brothers operated various stores in town. Isaac was a co-founder of the initial synagogue in Fredericksburg. Here is that census record of 1860. We have Samuel here. Isaac and Samuel. Isaac is the older one. He's the merchant, still at the store, being a merchant, and they still have a hustler there. So they're still running the mail routes as of 1860, I suggest. If you go to the library room, the Virginiana room downtown, and the lower level of the library, you'll see this hanging on the wall. It's a picture of Isaac and his son, who are operating a furniture store. 1870, it's not really dated. This is all sort of, it's related, but the description is below the picture on the wall down there. That's it, folks. The story of Parker. As I now know, there's much more to be done. There are so many loose ends there that warrant further investigation. I want to make a proposal. Sorry, Charles. After doing all of this and being in the Friends, one of the Friends' biggest, not current activities, but purposes in life would be to preserve land. And in my research here, the more and more familiar I became with this, I began to develop a feeling for it, such that I believe that area along the Parker Store Road, or along the Orange Plank Road there, by Wayne Miller's property, deserves some sort of a historical marking presence. And I have suggested, in my latter discussions with Wayne, I proposed to him that some of us give some thought to creating a pull-off there on 621, where we could have large enough for a 55-passenger bus, say, and we could have signage, interpretive paneling, one for the 1863 mine run activities that took place there, and one for the 1864 wilderness activities that took place there. It's my idea. I proposed it to Wayne. Wayne says he'll listen. Wayne is open to somebody doing something along these lines of preserving this site for people to come and visit. I just throw that out. Is it a project that the Civil War Study Group might think about? Some other group that you know might think about? The Friends are busy now working on Mine Run. Our direction, our thoughts are towards Mine Run. This is a Mine Run site, so it's related. What can we do? Just thoughts. Questions? Any other questions? Thank you.
Before you go, please remember to visit our website often, civilwarstudygroup.org. We make every attempt on a regular basis to provide informative content. Thank you for visiting, and God bless.